I um, it was a very, very long time. I already knew when I was like 15, 16 years old that I really loved music. So I was always collecting music. I was recording a lot of music out of the radio. Back in the days with tape decks, recording with tape decks. And when we had the first parties, like I was probably like, I don't know, 14, 15, 16 years old. It's probably like with you guys too. Like you have your first parties where you go to a basement of a friend's house, and you just put on some music. And already there, I was always the one who chose the music. Like because everybody else was busy with other stuff, and I was always like, nah, I want to do the music. It's me. I want to do the music. And so it was voluntarily because I already had a lot of tapes recorded, and I started to buy some vinyls. So I always thought of myself, I have more knowledge about the music than everyone else. And I was always annoyed when everyone else was making the music because I didn't like it. And I think that's part of the DJ. You really want to play the music that you like and convince other people that they like the music too.
Wow.
So, oh, something is happening on my laptop here. I'm not sure why. Um, my iTunes is. I'm talking about music and my iTunes starts to go on like automatically. That's super weird. Anyway, so I was always kind of the one already at like our school parties or friends parties that was like, no, I'll go to the tape deck, I'll put the tape in. And it was a hobby. It was a hobby, I was playing a lot of sports actually. I was playing a lot of tennis, and I was skiing back in the days already, like obviously not here where I'm living because there's no mountains, but I was always going to the mountains. And sports was my life kind of thing. And music was just a hobby. And then when I was like 18 or 19, I started to work in bars and did the beers, the tap, Cheers again, guys.
Cheers. Cheers.
So somehow nightlife was always something that I really liked. Nightlife was like, I was always attracted to nightlife somehow. And I remember in 1991, must have been, I was already, I was out of school already. I didn't really have a good idea what I should be doing. I had absolutely no clue what I should be doing. So I started to go to the university and started to study like economy. Economy. I had no better idea. But at the same time, my sister was working in a dance club, and the dance club was looking for a DJ for a Thursday night. And my sister was like, "Oh, my brother, he's like really has a lot of music, and he's like really interested in music. Maybe you should give him a try. He always plays music on parties." And so I was invited, and the Thursday night used to be like completely empty in this club. It still opened up. So they were like, "Yeah, you can go and play music," but the DJ booth was right next to the bar. So your job was not only to play the music, your job was also to do the beers. It was two things. And it was like, okay. It was a great job. I loved it. I think that was like, what's better? You just like stand there, beer, cheers, put on some music. I actually got paid less than the people working behind the bar, because the owner said, you can make music. You don't really need to work all the time. You can make music. So I pay you a little less money than the other people. Yeah. I was like, okay. And I started to work on that Thursday, and somehow it was all sorts of music that I was playing, right? I was playing like soul music, funk, a little bit of the early hip hop 90s, the early bits of also Italo disco. You remember like Black Box and all these You know, you remember these old bands from the 90s. You call it Euro dance. And it was a student club. So and slowly the Thursday night got fuller and fuller and fuller. Like people were like, "Hey, that's cool music there. Let's go and party." And so it became quite successful for some reason, you know. And for me it was great because I was able to start playing in a club which had no people, so I could practice a lot. I was always, because I didn't have turntables at home. I used to go at daytime. I had the key from the owner, and then I was able to practice, you know. And then it just continued. It was just like, okay, you can do some Saturdays, and I was playing on Saturdays, and it went on till, and I still had no idea if I can do this as my job, because back in those days when you were saying, what are you doing, you're a DJ, and then everybody was like, yeah, but what are you going to do in your life? Yeah, like DJ is not a job. And so it always felt like a hobby, and because everybody around you never really even had the idea of this could be your job. um, but I wasn't really happy going to the university too. So at one point the club owner, he was like really old. He was actually Italian from Italy. We have a lot of, you know, here in Germany we have a lot of Italian restaurants. Like that's the biggest food we have here, like Italian restaurant. And the club was next to an Italian restaurant, Pizza Adria, and the owner came from Rome, and he was older already, and he didn't want to do the club anymore. And he was like, Chris, you really like music and you really like techno, because I started to get really into techno, but I wasn't allowed, or I wasn't able to play techno in this club because it was like all kinds of people, you know, it was just not a techno club. And he was like, you know what, you run the club, like, here, take it, you know, you can renovate it. So he helped me to get some money from the bank, and I, with absolutely no experience, my only experience was doing the beers, um, started a club, and that was in January '94. Then you could say that I did the club because no one else booked me as a techno DJ. So I had to do my own club so I could book myself as a techno DJ, because nobody else would. So I gave myself the Saturday night. And I booked a soul DJ for the Friday, and I had another house DJ. We had a house night on Thursdays, which was really good. And I had a house DJ for this. It was a super fun experience. Really small club, just 300 people. And I was a very bad business person. Like, it was a small city. It was not Frankfurt. It was a small city outside of Frankfurt. And for everybody who came in, I knew everyone, kind of like you knew everyone in the city. So everybody who ordered a beer was like, oh, pay later. You know, it's like, you don't need to pay. No, you're like, yeah, whatever. Let's have a good night. And it didn't really work out financially. It was a lot of fun, but it didn't really work out in a financial way. So after like 1.5 years, I was completely broke. Like, the bank would not give me any money anymore. I was broke, so I had to close down the club. And this was the moment where I had to decide, what am I going to do with my life? You know, I love to DJ, I love music, but I need to do something real. You know, this can't be real. Do I go back to university? Nah, that was not really my thing. But at the same time, there was this record label called IQ Hard House. I'm not sure if you remember that. It's if you don't remember it, anybody who's watching, check out the old IQ classics on YouTube. IQ, YE, and then a Q. Yeah. IQ music, and it's a lot of classic. It's mostly trance, and also Hard House was a label from Frankfurt here, and that got me into techno music. So if you guys later on go on YouTube and you just find out about IQ music, which is again is spelled like IYE and then a Q. That was the music that I was really interested in, and it came all from this company, from this one label, and the boss of the label was Sven Feth, right? So I got a job there, because I was I think I was the only one capable of speaking English. I spent 1 year in America when I was like 16 years old. So I yeah, it was great, and I spoke English, and that's why I got the job. Like the only reason why you can speak to our company in London, because there was a company in London as well already. So I got that job, and that was my job then. So I had a monthly income. And then there was the Omen Club in Frankfurt, which was this legendary club. And one night there was they tried to find a DJ because a DJ got sick, and literally I was the last one in the office, and they were looking at me like, "You're a DJ, right? You also work as a DJ?" I'm like, "Yeah. Could you come tonight and just play the first hour? Because we just need someone to fill in the beginning, because the main DJ is only going to come later." I'm like, "Sure, I'll come by." And so there was in I remember it was in August. It must have been in August '95. So it's like 26 years ago. Oh god.
Wow.
Guys, time flies really. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll go there. So I played the first hour, and when the DJ came who was supposed to play after me, he was like, "Oh, you're doing a good job. Just continue to play, because the club is open till 10 in the morning, 11 in the morning." Like Frankfurt had no closing time. It was just like you open your club as long as you want. So he was like, "Keep playing." So in the end, I played till 4. And I went down to where the managers were in the office, and they were like, "Hey, you did a good job. Like, leave us your phone number," because there was no mobile phones at that time. So you had an answering machine at home. And I gave them my phone number, and they were like, "Maybe we call you again if we need someone." And it was already next weekend when they called me. It was like, "Oh, we like this guy's missing. Like, can you just substitute?" I was like, "Okay." And then it took till November, and in November they put me on the flyer for the first time. Like, I have a flyer from this club from November 1995,
Wow.
and that was the first time that my name got mentioned on a flyer for a techno party. Um, and even then, I didn't know this could be my life. Even then, you were just like, "Yeah, you just do this." And I remember talking to people like, "So what do you want to do in the next time?" And I'm like, "I'm DJing now." "Yeah, but what do you want to do in 5 years? What do you do in five? What do you do in 5 years when you're too old for this?" Like, I don't know. Nobody knew back in the days that you could work as a DJ in this. Techno was still so new that a lot of people said, like, in 2 years nobody's listening to techno anymore, because it's just, it's not interesting. And this is why I never really believed as well that this could be my life. I just let it happen. And then in '98, that club closed down, and a new club opened up, and I became resident in the new club too. I still was working for IQ Hard House, and I started my own label. And so you made some money working a normal daytime job in a label, but still music related. And then I started my own label in I think that was in '96 when I started audio recording, Fine Audio Recordings. And you made enough money to basically pay your rent, and maybe also have a car that drives you around. And I think at that point I decided this is what I want to do. But you still wouldn't, like, if you would ask me back then if we would be sitting here now in 2021 talking about my career as a DJ, I would be like, that would never happen. Like, at some point when you're 30, you have to find a real job. And it never happened. So I'm still today, I actually, like, have to pinch myself, like, yeah, that is actually your job. It's like, you can still do this. This is amazing. It doesn't have any meaning. Yeah. And I always love to do radio. Yeah, you just translate whenever you need to.
Okay.
Schranz doesn't mean anything. It's not a word with a meaning. It's just a word. You probably have some words like this in Italy as well. And I started doing radio shows in I think in '97, and there was a radio station called Evosonic Radio. Actually, that still exists today in the internet, Evosonic Radio, and they were only specializing in electronic music. And I always loved to do radio. I was always like, oh, radio. It's just I really love to play music to people, I guess, you know.
Okay.
And so every Friday I was playing music, and at at some point, every Friday I had 4 hours. Um, and usually the first 2 hours I was a little bit more like groovy, you know, and then you got into more the English kind of techno, a little bit more industrial. You probably know those guys like Surgeon,
Oh yes,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and Regis and all these guys, and their type of music was always pretty straight techno, a little bit distorted, dirty sounding, and really full of energy, really forward. And I really enjoyed that. And I remember at some point I had a friend with me, and we were together in the studio, and I was playing this music, we were smoking a joint, and he was like, "Oh, that's really shredding. You know, it's really shredding." And for some reason, I think he said the word "schranz." You know, it's like that's a good word. And then and then I said, like on the radio, I said, like, guys, we're gonna play some schranz here now. You know, so I said, and I actually only describe the regular techno with it. Well, let's say the techno, the more distorted techno that came from England. You know, not necessarily very fast. Like the tempo we have today, like 135 BPM, 140 BPM, but really distorted and dark sounding, pretty raw techno. Really stuff that I like.
Yeah.
And then I just said it on the radio. That's we're going to schranz now. You know, it's just the word has no meaning. It's just literally the how it sounds. You know, schranz,
Okay, you know? Okay.
And so for me, it was just a certain funny word for techno. And that's what I mean by there was never really a switch, because my definition of schranz is techno.
Okay.
But what happened then was over in the next 2 years, this type of techno became really, really popular. Like the harder type of techno. So DJ Rush, for example,
Yeah.
myself, Adam Bayer, Ben Sims, you know, suddenly people were saying, oh, they're playing schranz. And I remember Adam at some point coming to me, he's like, Chris, what is schranz? Like, people tell me I play schranz. What the hell is this, you know? And then we had a lot of parties here also in the area of Frankfurt. And then they started to call these parties like Schranz Party or Schranzfest, you know. So it became a term. It became out of hand. It got way bigger than what I initially thought, because it was taken over by other people. And then there was a younger generation of DJs. When I played together with DJ Rush, we did a lot of battle DJs back in the days, like in the end of the '90s and beginning of 2000s, like literally 20 years ago. And it was always really hard. And there was young DJs in the crowd who listened to this and really, really enjoyed that, went home, produced this kind of music the same way that mostly Rush and I was playing it. We were playing it a little bit faster. So they went home, produced it like they heard it, and then they released it. And then people like myself or Rush again played it again a little faster. So it became faster and harder, you know? And people, and that was the term Schranz then. And then there was a whole new generation of Schranz DJs. You know, maybe some of them. It's like Viper XXL, DJ Amok, Felix Kröcher. These were all like these DJs who were really hard in the beginning. You know, they played like 150 BPM. But when this became really popular, it was not my thing anymore. It was too hard for me and too fast for me. And I was always missing a little bit the soul in the music. You know, I think always music has to have a little bit soul. And if music becomes too fast, the faster it becomes, the space between the kick drums becomes smaller. You know, the slower the music, the more space between the kick drums, the faster, the less space. And the space between the kick drums, I feel like, is really important for the soul and the feeling and the vibe of the music, you know. Otherwise, it's just fast and energetic, but it's pretty flat, you know. It's like, you know, and it was really not my thing. And that then there came a phase, especially in Spain. Italy was never really, Italy for some reason, maybe I know the reason, because you guys just have a very open mind about music. And in Italy, it was always like you were celebrating music, like already in the 80s. I mean, the clubs you have already in the 70s. I always make a little fun because I'm always saying the Italians know how to party since the Roman Empire. You know, like since two and a half thousand years, you knew how to, yeah, you knew how to enjoy yourself. You know, you knew how to love life, to go out, to have a good time. That's why you have all these amazing clubs, you know, that in the 80s, those big clubs, which you still have some of them. Like I think Cocorico will be opening up again even.
No.
No? I was hoping.
I don't know.
I still hope too, but Italy has this incredible history with music and partying and having a good time. And obviously the Spanish too, but the Spanish, especially the North Spanish territories, they got really into hard techno. So there was moments when I was booked because I, for some reason, was the father of Schranz. So everybody expected me, if I go there, I would play 160 BPM techno, which they thought is Schranz. My definition, no, that has nothing to do with my definition of Schranz, you know. And then I literally had bookings in the let's say 2005 or 2003, around that time. In I was very popular in Spain at some point around this time, and I didn't want to play that fast, so I played a little bit slower. And I remember I had people in Spain standing in front of me with their shoes in their hand and doing like this, like giving me this and shoes in their hand. And when Spanish people have their shoe in their hand, that means play faster.
Ti chiedevano
Sì, in qualche maniera dicevano dai, su, come on, come on.
Okay.
Is it maybe a similar word like zapato? Zapato is shoe.
Ciabatta.
Ciabatta, and it's also like means also faster and go on, you know. So everybody was standing there waving me with the shoes and doing this, and I'm like, oh guys, this is all wrong. This is not my world. And this is where I was kind of like trying to distance myself from that Schranz world, you know. So it's not like that I made a decision not to play Schranz anymore. Schranz became something that I was not. It was the other way around. I still feel like I still play exactly the same music today as I have to go back. Actually, my very first label that I had together with some friends, I started this in '95, was called Soap Records. And Soap Records, it still exists. My old friend here in Frankfurt still runs it, and it was more a housey kind of label. It was more house. So actually, I did the house label as the first label. And we used samples for like the vocals, but it was more around like 125, 130 BPM, you know, and it got quite big right in the beginning. We were like, whoa, what? That's quite successful. But I always was like, I wanted to do a little harder music. So in '96, I started my own label, which I called Fine Audio Recordings. And if you Google Fine Audio Recordings, it was pretty simple. It was just a black label, and it was just written audio on it, and then Audio 1, Audio 2, Audio 3. And if you find the Audio 07, that was kind of my biggest breakthrough techno track. So yeah, where can you find? You can find it everywhere. I think it's on my Spotify as well. Yeah, it's Audio 07, and Audio 07 was the first time that I released a record, where suddenly I got requests from the United States or from South America, like come and play because we heard your record, Audio 07. It's a great techno record. I'm like, whoa, you know, this is great, hooray! And Dandu Groove was the name of the track. You know that name?
Yeah, down the
I know,
groove.
I know.
Yeah.
So I would say this was kind of my breakthrough record. You know, that was like where I first got internationally more known in techno, because I had this Dando Groove record. And I, you know, business wise, I'm not the smartest person. So I had contracts with the distribution with my label. And when I left the distribution, I find out that the distribution actually owns the rights for the name of that label. I wanted to take the label to a different distribution, and I wasn't allowed to take my label with me. And I wanted to continue, so I started the next label, and that was then in 1999. It's like 22 years now, yeah. And I had, you know, I wanted to have a cool label name. And it's like, oh, how do I call my label? How do I call my label? And I had already the release ready, the first one, and everything was ready. The distribution was in England, and they were like, dude, we need your label name, and we need like a logo, and you know, we need all that stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I can't come up with something. I can't come up with something. I need something. And I was just like, okay, let's just call it CLR, my name, Chris Liebing Recordings. Oh, what a lame label name, but it was just in that moment my first thought. Okay, let's do this. And yeah, that's how I started that label in '99. And I, I really enjoy running labels, because you can help younger artists. You know, you can give a platform. You meet a lot of people. You can collaborate. You can say like, hey, we can do a record on my label, on your label. And it was so beautiful. You know, you met a lot of people internationally suddenly, and you were like, I give you a track for your label, you give me a track for my label. And it's so much fun. And it's like, it's the exchange that's going on. It was so great. And yeah, and I always released what I believed in the techno that I believed in, and it worked quite well, and it worked. It went through different phases. I sometimes had different logos, and sometimes I released more stuff. Sometimes I was just like 1 or 2 records a year. Sometimes it was 1 record every month, and I really loved that. And then, but in 2014, I was at a point. You know, I had a great artists on that label. You know, at around 2014, there was like Black Asteroid, Rebecca, Drumcell, Fluke. You know, so many great guys. But I really felt like, oh, I want to make more music on my own. And you know, if you run a label, you have a lot of responsibility towards artists, because they work hard on music. They give you the music, and they rely on you to release the music in the best possible way. But I wanted to concentrate a little bit more on my own music and my own productions. And I had the idea of Burn Slow in my head, you know, and I wanted to do. I really need time for this. I really need, and I didn't know where to go. You know, it was just a lot of responsibilities, and that's why I thought like, okay, I'm gonna stop the label now. I'm just gonna freeze it, and then I have time for myself. And I basically told all the artists, guys, don't send me any demos anymore. Go somewhere else. Go away. You're all good. You're all great. You can all make your living and do your own thing. I need some time for myself. Yeah. And so nobody, somewhere not really happy about that decision, but it was my decision. And that's in 2015 is when I started working on Burn Slow album. And I think this has been, it's 5-6 years now that I didn't run the CLR label, but it was kind of on hold. And already like last year or 2 years ago, I felt like I want to do this again. You know, I want to get back. I want to release like proper nice techno. I want to work together with young artists. I want to get new artists on board. And it's great because actually the second release is by Italians. That's coming now. Like
it's
I restarted.
Herz Collision.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Herz Collision and genau. Yeah, and he calls himself Gene Richards Jr. and Herz. Yeah, Francesco is Herz, and they're making amazing music, and it's great, and I'm so happy I can restart this now and release my music. You know, release other people's music again, because I have a little bit more time now. My next album is done already. The follow-up to Burn Slow. is coming in November, and now I
Yes.
can focus. Yeah, now I can focus on CLR again. It's funny because we have a record. I met Joachim in 2001, I think, or it must have been 2000 or 2001. I booked him here to Frankfurt because I had a night every first Friday in a month. I had my night here in Frankfurt in a club, and I booked Joachim, and we got along really well. And the whole Collapse project started because Speedy J was playing live on my party, and I played after him. And when I started to set up my stuff, I kind of looked at him and said, like, Joachim, you don't need to finish if you don't want to. You just continue to play, and I play on top of you. And then, you know, I play something and you just add some hi-hats and stuff. And this was essentially the first Collapse show, you know. It was just like,
Wow.
Like natural.
We didn't do like you stop and I start. It was just like, oh, continue to play, Joachim. I'll mix in what you have, whatever you're doing. And I think we played for 1 or 2 hours together then, you know, that night. And it was like, oh, just on top. And we're like, yeah, we're working great. That was good. Yeah. And we got along. And then he said, why don't you come and visit me in Rotterdam? I have a nice studio. And we sit down and we start to make some music. And that's what we did. We did one 12-inch that was on Nova Mute. The first 12-inch. And then that was, I think, maybe in 2004. And then we released the album in 2006, Metallism, on Nova.
Metallism, yeah.
Yeah, and we just had a lot of fun playing together. And so we started this. We called it Collapse 3000. Then we just called it Collapse. Sometimes we don't know ourselves how to call it. It's like, is it 3000? Why did we put the 3000 in there anyways? It's like, I don't even remember where the 3000 came from. It was just like. 2000.
Solo Collapse. Only Collapse.
It's only Collapse. But we called it Collapse 3000 for some reason. I don't remember why, but at some point we lost the 3000. It was just Collapse. And I was actually in Joachim's studio again just I think about 2 years ago. And we worked for 10 days and we made a lot of music.
Yeah, we see the stories.
Wow.
Yeah. And we have one 12-inch already, like complete. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
And we have a 12-inch ready, and I'm sure you guys know the 4 tracks. It's 4 tracks that I always play, and they're never released. And when you hear the tracks, you were like, oh yeah, that's exactly. So many people have asked me for those tracks, and I'm like, they're not out yet. I'm not sure. There was a lot of things going on. Joachim had some releases, so we couldn't release the record. And it's still there. And Nova Mute wants to release this record sooner or later. And I think when the pandemic is over, we will maybe plan on some new Collapse gigs as well.
Great.
Yeah. So there will. It's not over. It's still all going. Okay. Yeah. The Banana, you know, the way we played was like I play with my system and setup, and we added some like 303s together, and we had a 909. He has his stuff. But when you play together, when you play back to back as a DJ, then it's normally like this person plays a track, and then you play a track, and then you play a track, and you play, or like, you know, it's all pretty much sorted. Like you play a track, then I play a track. But when our Collapse sets is all over the place. You know, it's like everybody plays constantly.
Okay.
But frequency-wise, the bass frequency is always the massive frequency bass, you know? And you always need to watch that only one of us was in charge of the bass. And we needed to figure out a system of who's in charge of the bass.
Okay.
And we were like, we can't constantly talk to each other, you know. It's like, hey, I want to do the bass. Oh, give me the bass. You know? And so we looked around, and there was this fruit basket there, and I took a banana, and I was like, you know what, Joachim, whoever has the banana has the bass.
Okay.
So if the banana lies on my side, then I have the bass. If I have the bass, I am leading, because whoever has the bass is leading. The person who has not the bass is just playing stuff on top, which fits, sounds and scapes and and so on. So when you have the bass, you are in charge of the breaks. You are in charge of everything. And so I have the banana in front of me. But if Joachim feels like, oh, I have some good ideas, I want to take over the bass, he just comes and grabs the banana and like takes the banana and takes him, puts him in front of him. So in that moment, I know that in the next moment, like in the next few minutes, I'm gonna give him the bass. So that after the next break, he's gonna start with the bass. So he plays maybe for like 10, 15 minutes with a banana in front of him. And like, if he didn't really have an idea anymore what to do, he would maybe even give me the banana, or I give him the banana. So the banana goes back and forth, and whoever has the banana has the lead. So we don't never have to talk to each other, and the banana is the bass banana. That's how the banana came about. You might have heard the first single already, Whispers and Wires. Yeah. And it is literally the first time in my whole life that I release a track where someone is singing. Like Ladan is singing on the track. I've never released anything where somebody was singing. It was always talking, spoken word, but this time it's singing. I grew up in the 80s, and I grew up with a lot of different types of music and 80s music. I'm a big fan of The Cure, obviously, as you know, of Depeche Mode, of all this type of music. So I kind of grew up and it's in me, and I really always loved the music, and I always tried to find a way to combine my love for techno with my also still love for this old, let's say, like these 80s kind of music. Peter Gabriel, for example, like it's like all these heroes of mine, Prince, and it's never really been easy to combine these two worlds. It's because techno is more like something that is repetitive at night, which puts you in a trance, and too much singing is just taking you out of it. It's like a different world. But I've always felt like there's a way to do it. So with my Burn Slow album, it was a beginning. It was a start to like slow, just maybe make it more for listening. Burn Slow is more like lean back, smoke a joint, and listen. Yeah, and with the Another Day album, I went a step further. So I would say everybody from the record label who's heard obviously the whole album by now is saying this is the next step of Burn Slow. It's less experimental. Burn Slow was still very kind of experimental. You have a 19-minute track on there and weird stuff. With Another Day, it's 10 tracks again, but all 10 tracks are in a way a little bit more refined. It's hard to explain. The next single will come out. When is the next single out? I can tell you in a second. I have that here. On 28th of June. So wait a minute. That's in 14 days. In 2 weeks, the next single will be out, and it's called Something Halfway. The next single is more techno track.
Okay.
But it has no straight beat. It's not 4 to the floor. It's dun 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 dun. Yeah, but it's still a techno track. So it's no vocals on the next single. There's no vocals. It's just a techno track, and we release 4 singles before the album comes. And the next 2 again have vocals. And I think, I always, when I make an album, it's very old school in a way, because it's about the whole album. It's not only about one track, but for everyone mostly in these days, it's like you just release singles or maybe an EP. But for me, an album, and as you guys know, I know this, it's meant for listening from the beginning to the end. You know, you like take your time, lean back, and enjoy it. And that's exactly the same thing with the Another Day album. So it's 10 tracks, um, which kind of bring you on that journey. Whispers and Wires is the second to last track, so it's kind of towards the end of the album. Um, I would say the Another Day album has a little bit more energy than the Burn Slow album. It's a little bit more moving, you know, it's a little bit more in that tempo, but it's maybe a little less experimental. It's more accessible for, it's not on purpose, but it's a little bit more, you could play it to your mom, I think, and she would be like, oh, that's nice, you know. I played it to some of my friends in Switzerland who don't really know much about techno, and they were like, "Oh, I would buy that. You know, this is nice to listen to." It's not that I wanted to do this, but it's like I feel like this is what I want to like. This is what I felt like I want to do. It's not that I did it because I want to have random people listening to my music. I did it because I felt like I did it. But the good thing about this album is now that for each track, I'm doing a club version, which I can play in clubs as well. So there's the connection for me for this. So even the techno track, which is the next release in 2 weeks, will have a club version, which is a 4 to the floor track beat, you know. So when we get back to clubs, I can finally play more and more also that this music, which I didn't really do with Burn Slow. Burn Slow was like somewhere else, you know. So there's more connection with the club world. There's old collaborations too. I already signed a new drum cell.
Drum set.
Yeah, drum cell. Yeah, he's back. He's back on the label. But I mean, mostly I'm looking for younger artists to discover them again and to give a platform if I can do this. But I'm open for anybody. If like Mo Drumcell, he sent me music. I was like, perfect, great. If some of the old artists sent me great music, like Terence Fixmer, for example, I will release it. I would say with this phase of CLR, which maybe I would call it's the third phase of CLR. You remember the beginning was like, it was my name, Chris Liebing Recordings. Yeah.
Okay.
And at some point I was really, and the label was kind of blue and white, but at some point I was like, oh, this is so selfish and ego, calling a label with your name, you know. It's like my name. It's like I don't want my name in there. So I changed it into Create, Learn, Realize, CLR. Yeah. And now I changed it again and I call it Create, Learn, Repeat. Like, do it again, repeat. Like, never stop. Like, do something, learn out of it, do it again, learn out of it, do it again, get better at it. Like get better. And my idea is again the same idea. I'm a in English you say I'm a one-trick pony. Do you understand that? A one-trick pony. A one-trick pony is just like you have only one trick. It's like there's nothing else. There's no secret anymore. And I'm a one-trick pony when it comes to techno. It's just super simple. I like the driving techno that you guys like too, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
And my goal is to release in a way timeless techno, but produced modern by young artists with new influences, but as well by old artists too, and of course by myself, because I want to release more like driving techno stuff, like proper tool time functional techno. Nothing is sent like exceptionally new. I don't want to reinvent the wheel, you would say. You know, I just want to release good techno music. So that's the third phase of CLR now.